Welcome to the Past Shatter channel, where we explore rare historical photos and the stories behind them. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one.
After a hard-fought World Cup match between Brazil and England in 1970, two of football's greatest icons, Pelé and Bobby Moore, exchanged jerseys in a moment that would transcend the outcome of the game. They stood together, sweaty and smiling under the eyes of a divided world, their simple gesture speaking louder than politics or rivalry. In a time when global tensions and racial divisions loomed large, this act of mutual respect between a black Brazilian and a white Englishman became a powerful symbol of unity. Their embrace showed that even in fierce competition, dignity and humanity can rise above the scoreboard. Once a textile worker from a small Russian town, Valentina Tereshkova soared into the cosmos in 1963 and became the first woman ever to travel to space. Alone in her capsule for nearly 3 days, she orbited the Earth 48 times, communicating calmly with ground control as history watched. Her mission wasn't just about space exploration, it was a statement to the world that women belonged in the stars too. This image of Tereshkova in her helmet, calm and confident, shattered gender expectations and ignited dreams across generations. In 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen darkened a room, placed his wife's hand beneath a strange device, and unknowingly opened a new era of science. What appeared on the photographic plate was both ghostly and beautiful. The outline of bones, a faint glimmer of skin, and a shining wedding ring. This was the world's first X-ray image, an accidental marvel that would forever change medicine, diagnostics, and how we see the human body. The photo was eerie yet wondrous, revealing a hidden reality once thought unreachable. Bathed in studio light and incense smoke, Bob Marley stands mid-session in the 1970s, eyes closed, as if tuned into a frequency only he could hear. In this sacred space, rebellion was wrapped in melody, and lyrics became calls to consciousness. His calm intensity, captured in this photo, reveals the duality of his spirit, gentle and fierce, peaceful and revolutionary. With every chord, Marley wasn't just making music, he was shaping a movement. Under the scrutinizing gaze of Adolf Hitler and the eyes of the world, Jesse Owens shattered the myth of Aryan supremacy by winning 4 gold medals at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Every stride he took was a blow against hate, a triumph not just of athleticism, but of moral clarity. The stadium roared, but this photo captured something quieter. Owens standing tall, composed, victorious in more ways than one. He didn't just run fast. He ran through barriers meant to stop him. Strapped to a V-2 rocket launched high above New Mexico in 1946, a camera pointed downward captured what no eye had ever seen before: the gentle curve of Earth against the black void of space. It wasn't in color, and it wasn't crisp, but it was profound. For the first time, humanity had seen its home from the outside, a fragile crescent floating in silence. The photo is humble, yet it marks the beginning of our cosmic self-awareness. At just 18 years old, Queen Victoria sat for her portrait in 1837, only days after ascending to the British throne. Her gaze is steady but youthful, unaware of the extraordinary responsibility she had just inherited. Draped in regal attire, yet still clinging to traces of innocence, she faced the lens with a quiet grace. This photo, part painting and part photograph, captures the cusp of transformation, the moment before a young woman became an emblem of empire. When Jackie Robinson first walked onto the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947, he wasn't just breaking into Major League Baseball. He was breaking through the walls of American segregation. Under the weight of hostile crowds and relentless pressure, he kept his head high and his performance impeccable. This photo freezes him mid-play, focused and unflinching, a man who turned his bat into a symbol of resistance. Robinson didn't just change the game, he changed the country. With wild eyes and an uncontainable grin, Steve Irwin knelt beside a massive crocodile in the 1990s, extending food like he was greeting an old friend. There was no fear in his movements, only deep respect and boundless energy. His passion for wildlife wasn't an act, it was his essence. This photo immortalizes the thrill, danger, and devotion that made Irwin not just an entertainer, but a conservation legend. In a dim, cluttered lab of the early 1900s, Marie Curie stands surrounded by mysterious glowing instruments, her expression one of focused serenity. Here, amid beakers and radioactive materials, she defied both science and society. As one of the first women to win a Nobel Prize and the only person to win in 2 different sciences, she charted the unknown with relentless curiosity. The photo reveals not just a scientist, but a revolutionary illuminated by discovery. Wrapped in blankets, their faces pale and dazed, Titanic survivors stood on the deck of the RMS Carpathia in 1912, plucked from icy darkness into the weak light of morning. Some clung to each other, while others simply stared, caught between relief and grief. This image captures the surreal stillness after catastrophe, a fleeting moment when survival felt almost unreal. They had escaped the sea, but not the sorrow. In 1945, as the smoke of war still hung over Berlin, citizens emerged from shattered buildings to wave and cheer at the sight of US troops. Their faces were filled with exhaustion and cautious hope. Amid ruins, this gesture of welcome wasn't just gratitude, it was a plea for peace, a flicker of humanity after years of horror. This image captured the fragile hope that peace might be possible again. John Quincy Adams sat stiffly in 1843, the heavy daguerreotype camera aimed at him as he held perfectly still. Decades after his presidency, he unwittingly became the first US president ever photographed. The image is grainy and somber, capturing a man of the past with a technology of the future. It's not just a likeness, it's a bridge between eras. Leaning slightly forward behind a desk cluttered with microphones in the 1930s, President Franklin Roosevelt prepared to speak. His fireside chats were more than broadcasts. They were lifelines during the Great Depression. Through crackling radios in living rooms across America, his voice calmed a trembling nation. This photo captures that rare bond between a leader and his people, when words alone offered strength. Dressed in Union blues, a group of young Civil War soldiers gathered for a portrait, rifles in hand and faces solemn. Behind their eyes was the knowledge of what lay ahead. Many would not return. This image, taken before battle, is haunting not for its action, but for its stillness. It's a moment where time paused just before being shattered by war. Slouched casually on a campus bench in the 1980s, Barack Obama seemed like any other college student, pen in hand, thoughts deep behind his quiet smile. But behind that calm exterior was a mind beginning to shape ideas that would one day reshape the world. The photo reveals not a politician, but a thinker at the beginning of his arc. Taken by the Apollo 17 crew in 1972, the Earthrise photo shows our planet rising like a delicate blue marble over the moon's horizon. It wasn't just a beautiful view, it was a revelation. From that alien vantage point, Earth seemed small, unified, and heartbreakingly fragile. This image helped spark the modern environmental movement and redefined how humanity saw itself in the cosmos. Gaunt faces pressed against the rusted barbed wire at Buchenwald in 1945, as the prisoners inside caught their first glimpse of freedom. Their hollow eyes carried the weight of survival, of pain witnessed and endured. In this one haunting frame, the world was forced to confront the unspeakable atrocities of the Holocaust. The image is not just documentation, it's testimony. In 1884, a Kansas farmer managed to steady his primitive camera just long enough to snap a photo of a swirling tornado touching down in the distance. The funnel loomed like a ghost on the prairie, a rare and terrifying spectacle. At a time when photography itself was still young, capturing nature's fury in real time was both daring and historic. Inside a Miami gym in 1964, Muhammad Ali struck a pose, pretending to knock down the 4 stunned Beatles like dominoes. The result was electric. 2 worlds colliding: music and sports, fame and fun. The image radiated joy, charisma, and the spirit of an era breaking all rules. Weeks after the atomic bomb decimated Hiroshima in 1945, a mother and her daughter stood for the camera, both bearing scars, both wrapped in white bandages. Yet their expressions were eerily calm, as if their suffering had transcended expression. This photograph became a quiet, devastating indictment of nuclear warfare. Drawn centuries before the first flight, Leonardo da Vinci's sketch of a flying machine was a blueprint born of pure imagination. The design, resembling both wings and gears, was wildly ahead of its time. Though it never left the page, it inspired generations of dreamers to turn fantasy into aviation reality. Bruce Lee, caught in motion during a training session in the 1970s, blurred so much that his body seemed made of wind. The camera couldn't keep up with him, and that was the point. This rare photo captured the fusion of martial arts, discipline, and philosophy that made Lee a legend. In November 1965, the lights of New York City went out, plunging millions into darkness. Instead of chaos, a strange peace settled across the metropolis. People helped strangers, traffic was calm, and the night took on an almost surreal beauty. The city was dark, but humanity glowed. As air raid sirens howled for the first time in London in 1939, civilians stared at the sky, not knowing whether death would follow. This chilling moment marked the end of innocence. War was no longer distant. It had arrived with a sound that would become all too familiar. On a sunny day in Sarajevo in 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie waved to onlookers from their motorcade. Moments later, they would be assassinated. This seemingly ordinary photo captured the last breaths before a murder that would ignite a world war. High above Paris in 1888, ironworkers balanced fearlessly on skeletal beams, piecing together what would become the Eiffel Tower. The city below doubted the structure's beauty, but the builders pressed on, trusting in the vision. This photo captures grit, daring, and the rise of an icon. In a rare colonial photograph from the early 1900s, African warriors stood face to face with British troops, both sides tense, uncertain, yet silently connected. It was a fragile moment of coexistence before violence and empire widened the gap. The camera caught the stillness before history hardened. With little more than pickaxes and horses, workers in 1900 burrowed through Manhattan soil, carving the city's first subway tunnels. They toiled underground while the future took shape above them. This photo shows the very birth of urban transformation, raw and unforgiving. In the haze of the Civil War battlefield in 1862, President Abraham Lincoln visited General McClellan, standing side by side in a tent filled with maps and uncertainty. Lincoln, tall and somber, had come to see the toll of leadership firsthand. This photo revealed his resolve not just to command, but to witness. Emerging from prison after 27 years, Nelson Mandela walked hand in hand with Winnie as crowds surged around them. His face glowed not with bitterness, but with promise. The photo captured not just the end of imprisonment, but the beginning of a nation's rebirth. After completing the first successful heart transplant in 1967, Dr. Christian Barnard and his team posed quietly, tired but triumphant. The sterile room still echoed with history. Medicine had stepped into the future, and the photo froze the moment of that leap. Before he became a revolutionary, Fidel Castro wore a baseball uniform and played with intensity on a local field. In this 1959 photo, he is mid-pitch, young, focused, and still far from becoming a global symbol. Sometimes, revolution starts with a game. In the windswept dunes of North Carolina, the Wright brothers tested a fragile glider, chasing the dream of flight one footstep at a time. In this 1902 image, the wings barely lift, but history is already airborne. The photo captures not success, but the relentless pursuit of it. Before the war stole her world, Anne Frank smiled for a childhood photo in the 1930s, her eyes bright, her spirit alive. This image now speaks louder than words, showing a life full of promise before it was cut short. Her diary gave her voice. This photo gives her face. In 1930, the first flight attendants took to the skies in crisp uniforms, trained as nurses, ready for anything at 10,000 feet. They were more than hostesses. They were pioneers of the skies. This image marked the beginning of modern air travel's human touch. A World War I soldier stared blankly as a measuring tape wrapped around his head, being fitted for a gas mask. It was a strange moment of preparation for an even stranger type of warfare. This photo reflects the surreal and inhuman changes war brings. Surrounded by military men, Elvis Presley said goodbye to civilian life in 1958. His fame momentarily paused for duty. The king of rock and roll in uniform reminded fans that no one is too big to serve. This was patriotism draped in stardom. With patience and precision, Wilson Bentley captured the first known photo of a snowflake in 1885, revealing the astonishing detail of something once thought invisible. He called them miracles of beauty, and the world began to see winter differently. Winston Churchill, gripping a Tommy gun in 1940, stared down the camera with fierce defiance. This wasn't just for show. It was morale embodied. Britain would not go quietly, and Churchill made that visually clear. Standing firm in full armor, a samurai posed for one of the last known portraits of his kind in the 1860s. The sword gleamed, the posture proud. Tradition was about to fade, but here it stood immortal. Overnight in 1961, bricks were laid in silence across Berlin, cutting the city and families in half. Onlookers stared as the wall took shape, helpless and stunned. In that instant, separation became concrete. At just 24 years old, the Dalai Lama walked through India in exile in 1959, his eyes full of serenity, his world in upheaval. Surrounded by monks and soldiers, he carried not anger, but peace. This photo is the calm after a spiritual storm. The Titanic's chief baker, soaked and weary, sat in a lifeboat after surviving the freezing night of 1912. He had handed out whiskey to keep others warm, refusing to abandon his post. Against all odds, he endured, and so did his story. In Tiananmen Square in 1989, thousands gathered in peaceful protest, demanding democracy under a sea of flags and flickering candles. Their courage filled the air with possibility. Before violence fell, this photo captured hope standing tall. Marilyn Monroe, often underestimated, sat quietly reading Ulysses in 1955. The click of the camera caught not glamour, but intellect. Beauty alone didn't define her. This image proved she had depth too. A humble storefront opened in 1962 in Rogers, Arkansas. It was the first Walmart. No one then could have predicted its rise to global dominance. This photo is the origin story of modern consumer culture. Moments after the Chernobyl explosion in 1986, workers stood near the shattered reactor, their faces blank with confusion. The silent, invisible enemy, radiation, clung to everything. This photo captures the moment the world changed without warning. In a rehabilitation center during the Vietnam War era, a young boy with prosthetic legs smiled brightly as he played. Despite the limbs he had lost, his spirit remained intact. This photo is resilience made visible. At the first Miss Universe pageant in 1952, women from across the globe stood shoulder to shoulder in shining sashes. Their smiles hid nerves and the weight of new global attention. The photo launched a world of beauty, culture, and competition. At Cambridge in the 1970s, Stephen Hawking sat surrounded by chalkboards, his body still but his mind alive with galaxies. ALS had taken much from him, but never his brilliance. The photo shows thinking made eternal. Covered in coal dust with only his eyes visible, a 1930s miner stood as a living testament to hard labor. Every shadow on his face was a chapter in industrial history. The photo is dignity carved in soot. In a laboratory in 1958, a small dot bounced across an oscilloscope. Tennis for Two, the first video game. It was simple, even crude, but from that flickering screen, an industry would rise. Albert Einstein, laughing in fuzzy slippers at Princeton, reminded the world that brilliance doesn't have to be serious. He defied the mold not just in theory, but in life. This image made genius feel human. In 1959, the first Barbie stood upright in a striped swimsuit, staring confidently into the future. She wasn't just a doll. She was a symbol of changing ideas about beauty and femininity. The photo launched a revolution in plastic. On the deck of the USS Missouri in 1945, Solemn leaders leaned over documents as they signed away war. No confetti, no celebration, just finality. This image marked the end of the deadliest chapter in human history. In 1936, a man leaned in close, mesmerized by the flickering screen of a black and white television. He wasn't watching just a program. He was witnessing the dawn of a new era. The image glows with wonder. Among the rubble of war-torn Europe in the 1940s, children played with sticks and laughter. Their world had collapsed, but their joy had not. This photo is proof that even in destruction, life finds a way. Wearing a long skirt and a badge, the first woman police officer in the UK stood on patrol in 1915. She looked both proud and uncertain, stepping into a role society hadn't yet accepted. But she stepped anyway. Fitted with a custom gas mask, a dog stood ready for the unknown horrors of World War II. The image feels almost absurd, yet heartbreakingly real. Even innocents had to prepare for war.